also looks at levers, or sort of the tools that we can use to make changes in these systems. It looks at the 2019 report looked at 4 levers: governance, economy and finance, science and technology, and individual and collective behavior. The 2023 report will add a 5th lever, which is capacity and capacity building. So I'm sort of giving these different elements of the framework because as we go into the working groups, we'd like you to think about in particular examples where different sectors are working together. So different levers are working together. So finance and governance and partnerships with the private sector, with communities, which would be that individual and collective action, with science and innovation, and sort of where these things are intersecting and amplifying each other. Similarly, where maybe an action is would have an impact on more than one SDG or more than one of those entry points that I described. So those are sort of the interactions, the moments of sort of integrated action that we're really looking for in our working groups. So I know, as I said, I know that a lot of you signed up. The environment section, I think, has gotten the fewest volunteers. So that was why I was sort of talking up the environment section a little bit to try to inspire a few more people to volunteer for that group. But basically, we have a nice long session. We'll start around in a few minutes. And then we would have a coffee break at 3:30, but we then go back to the room, and we have until 4:30 to really. So there's going to be plenty of time to talk, exchange, go around the table. I know also some of you did contribute examples in advance, which we really appreciate, and those have been great as we prepare for this meeting. But even if you didn't submit something online in advance, please. That's no problem. Just share your experiences in the room. When we come back to this plenary hall, you see the chairs. They've been empty all day. We're going to ask each group to nominate a rapporteur who would then report back on the kinds of things that were discussed. So that would be one of the first jobs of the group, is to identify someone within the group who could volunteer to sit up here in the beginning and just talk about some of the key messages. And the moderating teams will help that person develop or sort of refine the kinds of messages that they want to share with the plenary. So the 3 groups, again, are strengthening human well-being and capabilities. That will be moderated by Dr. Jaime Montoya and Dr. Astra Bonini. And that seems like it's going to be the largest group, and so that will be in a room. We're going to have people directing you and helping you find the rooms, but that will be sort of around behind on this floor. The energy decarbonization and universal access will be in a room sort of also on this floor, but that way, and that's going to be moderated by me and by Lorena from GIZ. And then we have the environmental commons group, and that will be upstairs. And that will be moderated by Dr. Ludgard Koppens from UNEP, who's here and you haven't heard from yet, but you will in this group, and then also tomorrow, and Ms. Louise Gluckner from GIZ. So any questions on yes?
Is it also acceptable to recommend something that I know of that's working somewhere else and I would like to see it being transferred in the region?
Definitely.
Okay.
As long as you have information about it, whether you've researched or read about it or you know people who are involved, that's fine. It's just we want to get details because these are ideally some of these would make their way into the report as case studies or boxes or at least paragraph examples that are included in the text. So
because
as long as you have details.
I think if it's reported in the report, it would help us adapt them, and I think there is a huge need for adapting such platforms.
Excellent. Yes, that's absolutely fine. Is that a question? No. Any other questions? Yes.
I know I'm with you in the environment, so I'm
Yes, I was going to say,
migrate.
then you have to go
I'm
to the environment side.
gonna migrate from the.
No, I mean, I think it's nice to stay in one. I mean, you're not chained to the room, but I think it's nice just to get the dynamic and sort of the, we want it to be sort of free-flowing discussion and to build on things that have been said earlier. So I think it's nice if it's.
Yeah, if you can accept me to migrate from decarbonization. I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
So-
Please join the environment. Yes. Any other questions? Okay. So I know that some people signed up, but because not everyone did, we're going to sort of start from scratch. So it's going to be a little chaotic, I think, but it will settle down. Basically, go to the room where you would like to be. So again, if you want to be in the environment room, go upstairs and people will be kind of directing you along the way. If you'd like to go to the energy room, it's in this direction. And if you'd like to go to the human well-being and capacity, it's sort of behind this room. So you'll be in good hands with the moderators and we'll see you back here at 4:30. But it's the core of the meeting still here. So let's hear from each other now and hear what was discussed and learned in the plenaries. I think we'll do two. So maybe we'll start with human well-being, and then we'll do energy, and then we'll go to the virtual. We have a reporter from the virtual consultation, and then we'll go to our environment reporter. So let's start with human well-being. And
Hi, I'm Nadal Buhi. I'm gonna try my best to do justice of this discussion and this wonderful, insightful group. Please, anybody from my group later on, you want to add something, feel free. Many important key issues came up, as well as examples. One of the most common ones was education. So not just access to education, but the quality of education. So, and not just how can we make the education in a way that youth are given 21st century tools, so soft skills as well, including innovative thinking, creative thinking, critical thinking, research. So really forward thinking education and equipping them with the required tools. Another big issue was employment and decent jobs. And this came in a range of ways. So from corruption of the government, and its relationship with the private sector, as well as how in certain Arab countries, youth believe that job is a right. So how much expenditure is put to government paying jobs because youth are mainly concentrated the work there. So this idea of diversifying the workforce. Another big issue that came up was data. So the lack of data, the need to invest in getting more data, and the need for the data to evidence-based for for the work. So one of the main points that came up was determining the areas of intervention depending on the data and the evidence that we get and the results. And this also then went into the idea of building relationships. So the trust relationship between the researchers and the stakeholders, whether that's government or the private sector, because then we went to the issue of implementation. How can we get the governments to implement? So we were discussing the need to build this trust relationship. Let me get and then of course health, the need for health to live a productive life and to live productively. And this also came with the role of the state. So how much the role of the state should play in the region, it's quite exceptional, and in many ways it helps, but in some ways the misallocation of resources. So something that came up was the issue of subsidies, so fuel subsidies. Why is that still happening in oil-rich countries? While these subsidies and these expenses that are going to other issues, to other things like the government jobs or subsidies that can be going to health and education. So a lot of these expenses are taking money out of budgets for education, health, and other services. And then again, the idea of services and the quality of services, so that it has been deteriorating. And yes, and then another key issue that came up was then what was suggested is how can we turn times of crisis for times of opportunity? So how can we, for example, again, build the trust with governments and implementators so that we can get the research that's done into implementation. So that was connected to the idea of how can we present the information, the data, and communicate in a way that is digestible for the government. Okay, let me see. So, because there was just so many notes and yeah, and then the issue of political economy came up. So this was in terms, again, of relation to public-private stakeholder relationships, as well as the issue of debt and the need for more data on the political economy and more participatory research. And institution quality. So another issue that really came up in the region was corruption. How can we address corruption, ineffective government, lack of rule of law or accountability, and effects of corruption spillover? Because again, this redirects finances and funds from education, health, and other services. And then the region and I think I'm not doing justice. So please, if somebody wants to add something, I think this is about it right now, what I have. And the need to, one of the final points was the issue of inequality. So both locally and globally. So how the global inequality spills over into local inequality, and how youth empowerment plays a crucial role in that, and not just for global North, but also investing in global South youth in terms of building skills, as well as financing, as well as providing a space to meaningfully listen and trust in them. And very importantly, the issue of localization, so localized solutions and localized funding, and also how can we get the local populations, the majority voice up to the decision-making tables, such as the ones that we're at now. And I probably mentioned this, but I will mention again for emphasis, the crucial importance of health as a pillar for capabilities. And yeah, some examples. There's examples, for example, from the Arab League with the triple nexus approach, looking at peace building, development, and humanitarian assistance. and there's subcommittees on how to really implement the